that this was Chris's motion, and Mary and Tim had some concerns. So I thought I would try to bring the conversation back around to people need housing, and also homeless people are not, crime. They're not criminals. They're what human beings are. They're conditions. It's what you make them. It's what the system, the greed that takes away their home does. And they don't do drugs freely. They're reduced to it because it's their survival mechanism. House everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. I'm Rick Stalley. I'm a general contractor in the area, and I do primarily manufactured homes. I'm opposed to the tiny home idea for this a couple different reasons. One is that environmental health. One of the biggest battles I have in setting a manufactured home on anybody's property, especially after the fires, was the septic systems. Septic systems in Shasta County can run upwards of $30,000 nowadays. And we have to size every house we do for the existing septic system. Obviously, I've been irritated by it many times with dealing with the county. I do understand, however, their reason for doing it. And that is for the safety of this community. And so we power through that a lot of times. And so if you add an additional bedroom to a septic system in Shasta County, then that system that is currently, most of the houses built in this county systems were sized for that house. You add an additional bedroom with somebody living there full time, you've now created a situation where these people are gonna have to have an additional septic system or completely rebuild the one that they've got. And it just looks to me like a massively expensive endeavor for the client, which is not my concern. They can, if they've got the money, they can do it. But it just looks like a real challenge. The other thing is density. You're changing density, and you're also creating a situation where I've set manufactured homes, we walk away, they're absolutely beautiful when they're done. And then you go back a year later and you can't believe what the people have done to their property. And I see that as a similar situation with tiny homes. The whole idea is that they're gonna have another space for somebody to live in, but it does create an issue. And as many battles as I've had with Adam and the county in getting these projects going, I understand their whole goal is to try to clean this county up, and I don't see that as a positive, my personal opinion. So, but anyway, it kind of sounds like you guys have already made a decision that you're going to move forward with it, and I have nothing against the contractor that's building these homes, but they are under different standards, and they are under different safety standards. And back in the day, I used to fight fire, and when a manufactured home goes up, it goes up like that. I mean, not a manufactured home, but an RV goes up, it goes up like that. And so anyway, that's just my thoughts.
Thank you. Next speaker, please. If anyone else would like to address us on R2, please come on up.
My name's Lori Heston, and I'm listening to the conversation. I would like to encourage the board and the county to think outside of the box. With respect to the state of California, it has become so exorbitantly expensive to live that I think as a society we have to start thinking about more affordable ways to accommodate different income levels. And a project such as this, even if it was coordinated where, and I'm not sure the whole project itself that you're discussing, but if there's a way that you can have a little community for tiny homes that meet the needs so far as septic and land use being used up and how it's being used, regulation of that, I think that would be a great way to think outside of the box. As an example of expense, I recently starting to take over the assistance of my in-laws and their medical needs. And so doing, I'm realizing, you know, they kept saying they didn't qualify for assistance. And I'm using this as an example as to how expensive life is, and people can't afford to live anymore once you have the expense of the housing. They bring in, their net is $2,200 a month. Their rent is $1,000, that's $1,200. Their utilities are about $500, brings it down to $700. That's not counting a phone bill, internet, cable, additional medical expenses, gasoline, food. And our account fresh department say they only qualify for $15 a month for food stamps. They have $700 for 2 adults to live on for 30 days on average. And it's just too expensive. It's very difficult. So I think it's important that I understand we've had ways of doing things in the past. I think things are changing, and I think it's important for Shasta County to come along with those changes and think about new ways to meet the need. If we don't, I fear we'll have more people who are homeless and have to give up living in a dwelling, and not let our existing rules and regulations get in the way of that success. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve Kahn.
Good morning, board, community members. We have a housing shortage. I mean, we're drastically short of areas for people to live, and to me, this seems like a wonderful option. One of the reasons why we don't have the homes we need is because of the increased requirements that have been imposed in the last 25 years. Sprinklers are a good example. There are many states that prohibit counties from requiring sprinkler systems because their value is questionable. But the cost is there. It's built into our homes here in California. And a lot of the requirements are. I'm not saying build them unsafely, but I think that we need to do what we need to do to have these abilities, have these possible here in Shasta County to help relieve some of our housing situations. Certainly, how does it compare to the tiny homes? I think it's a much better option than that. And if we can keep a family together by allowing a family to have an inexpensive way to pull them into their property, I think that's wonderful. So anyway, I think we should consider it seriously and try to minimize the cost. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Come on up.
Kimberly Moore, President of District 1. I really liked it when the tiny home builders came up and spoke, because one of the things I realized is that it's those people within the industry, and not just this one that spoke today, but leaning on all of the people in the tiny home industry, because they're the ones that, it's their business and capitalism that depends upon them being able to do this. I think that they can help the county team recognize the hurdles and jump them faster. So as we know, I live at the Woodlands, and just the first 54 units at the Woodlands, what's called phase 1, that was $24 million. It was originally only supposed to be $19 million, but it went up an additional $5 million. I wonder how many tiny homes that would have been, how many more people could have been housed. As far as people being able to damage a tiny home in the first year, well, I watched the tenant below me do over $40,000 worth of damage to the apartment below me in the first year and a half. It was so frustrating. I was reporting that it was happening, and this person was just allowed to terrorize this apartment, and by the time they finally got them out of there, they had to replace windows, window screens, doors, holes in the walls. I've seen full bathroom sinks have to be replaced because they break them. Like Monique mentioned, that what's happening? Is the person traumatized, or is it drug use? Why are they so unwilling to care for themselves? And then when you look at a project like the micro shelters that are at United Way, did a really good job of providing security. I mean, they had that tiny little budget compared to what the Woodlands has. We can't get the Woodlands to provide security. The tiny home project provided the security, and that stopped the trouble. If you look at the number of police calls in the first year,